Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fandom Empire Live. Joining me tonight on this one is going to be Randy and Matt, and this one's going to be a little bit of a balanced episode. It might even be more wrestling, which is why wrestling is to the left and not the right. But we are going to start off in the land of Halloween, and before we do so, let's introduce our co-host on screen so you can see that they are in fact here. Mr. Matt Whitfield rocking his Metallica shirt. What's going on, dude?
Not much, man. Not much at all. What have you been up to?
Living the dream. God knows. Oh, this is totally on the wrong side of the screen. Let's see if I can fix that. Randy, how about you? How
That's
you?
a Redskins hat.
I'm just chilling, man. Just relaxing, coming down from, that gym high you get from when you're there for a couple hours. But other than that, just enjoying life.
There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. You guys are seeing something different on your screen than what I'm seeing, so I'm a little thrown off by this at the moment. But I think I fixed it. Ta-da! Yes. Good. Okay, awesome. So we're 25 years removed from the release of Halloween H20. Now, this movie, for better or for worse, changed the face of the franchise at the time. And even to today, like you have Halloween 1, Halloween 2, Halloween 4, Halloween 5, Halloween 6. And then it just kind of stops and moves on to something else. Matt, I want to start with you, man. Halloween H20 is one of those movies that is, it seems very volatile in the fan base. It has support. Like, there are thousands and thousands of fans of this movie that swear by it and swear that it's the one of the best Halloween movies made. For some people, it's the definitive sequel to Halloween 2. But for you personally, how do you view Halloween H20? Not what they could have done to make it great, because I have some ideas I want to run by you guys. But where does the movie stand with you 25 years later? I'm also assuming you had more hair back then, too.
Listen, you bearded bitches.
Did you just call yourself a bitch? I think you did.
No, I was talking to you and Randy because Randy was laughing, so he's just guilty. Anyway, I was actually talking to Randy about this earlier on his way home from the gym. I still have beef with this movie. A real big beef. Number one, the mask looked like shit. Number two, the mask looked like shit. Number three, it was 88 minutes long.
The mask looked like shit.
It did. I wasn't a big fan of the 88-minute movie. It was just way too short. And it feels like they crammed so much in 88 minutes. I wasn't a big fan of the acting, other than I thought Harnett was pretty good. I thought Michelle Williams was good, and what LL had, what he did was actually, I think, the scene stealer of the movie. But I think it was Chris Durant who was the Michael in this. I was disappointed for what people perceived to be the best follow-up. I mean, best Halloween sequel or best follow-up to Halloween 2. If they're saying that, they haven't seen Halloween 4. And if they've seen Halloween 4, they're just giving it no credit. Go ahead.
There's a lot of people that seem to give Halloween 4 not enough credit. But like, I could do 20 videos on that and we'll be here forever. content for the year at that point. Randy, how about you, man? When did you? I'm assuming you've seen Halloween H20.
I have.
But what did you think of the movie compared to any of the other installments? Really,
For what for what it was, I enjoyed it. Like, I'm the type of person when I go into watch a movie, I'm not going to be that guy who's going to be like, oh, what the hell is this crap? I'm literally just like, okay, they did some things okay, they did some things really bad, but overall, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. And if I get a chance to sit down and watch it again, sure, why not? That's just kind of how I am with movies in general. And with this, it's really no exception. It was one of those where I was excited for the fact that it's 20 years. We get Jamie Lee Curtis back, and we get to kind of see what their idea was on how they're going to bring it all together. And I felt like there was, it's typically sometimes real cheesy moments, which is typical of most slasher movies, especially if you're trying to harken back and have that nostalgic trip from the 80s. And that's kind of some of the stuff they did really kind of made you feel that way. But I also felt like there were things that could have been done a lot better. I feel like some of the characters just didn't feel as fleshed out. They just felt like they were essentially meat shields there to just die, which, that's any slasher movie. But ultimately, I felt like for Josh Hartnett getting his start, and like Matt was saying, Michelle Williams, and just having some of the LL Cool J definitely had some of the better scenes without a doubt. Ultimately, like I said, I didn't hate it, I didn't love it, and I would watch it again just because especially like since Halloween season's coming relatively soon, which is crazy to think about. I would really, it's just one of those things where I feel like there's a lot of things they really could have done that would have taken it to the next level, not to the point of like the original Halloween, but at least paid really good homage to it and made you feel like it really could potentially have been a true sequel to 2.
I think that Halloween H20 has one of the better Halloween movie casts, to be honest. You have Jamie Lee Curtis, you have LL Cool J, you have Josh Hartnett, you have Michelle Williams, you have Adam Arkin, who doesn't get enough credit. So like, I hate that with all that talent, we still found a way to get the movie we got, which is not a terrible movie. See, Dean, all my years doing this, I never thought to tell people to stab the like button. Never thought about that, but clearly you're on top of things and a much smarter individual than I. Yeah, please stab the like button, but we won't replace your computer screen. So yeah. Anyway, I can watch Halloween H20 and appreciate the story that they are trying to tell. But if any of you have watched this channel before, one of my biggest nitpicks for this movie is I think the score sucks. And I think the score is so integral to a Halloween movie. And it's kind of part of the DNA that most of these movies have been built on. And I did not appreciate the orchestra or the tone. I just did not like it. And I thought it took me out of the movie. Obviously, it has that Dawson's Creek feel. It's more PG-13 than it is R. And I do think if you take this story and make it I know that's not what they were doing at the time, and there's a bunch of logistical reasons people could argue to do it, the way they did it. But I think if you trim some of this movie down, stick with one mask, and ideally, honestly, preferably none of them, not even the H6 one. Like, I know Michael looks good in it, but it's a new movie. Let's do it. Just a completely new mask that's a nod to the original. I didn't think they ever got close in this movie. Then they intentionally started fucking around with what one they were going to wear depending on what they were shooting. And like, it still stands out like a sore thumb when you watch the film. So taking the mask shit aside, and the Jamie Lee Curtis power trip that happened once Deborah Hill and John Carpenter had backed out of the project. I think if you make the movie a hard R, you lean on the actors you brought in because you did bring in talent, and you change the score, you tighten the story a little bit. I think there's absolutely something, better there for sure. I wouldn't have mind seeing more people stay at the school and not have everybody leave on that trip. Give Michael a couple more kills. I just think there are things that they could have done to make the movie better, but that's subjective because what's better to me might not be better to the two of you. Matt, if you were changing anything about Halloween H20, what are some of the things that you would change to make the movie great?
I mean, I think you nail it on the head. The one biggest thing was the score. It's like right after she sends Josh and Michelle down the road in the car, and then hits the button. I mean, throws the rock on the what was it? The lock to the gate and everything. He yells Michael, and then you hear that just wham in your face orchestra of the theme. It was just like, that's not it. That's not how it's done. I mean, but yeah, I think another, like, the score for me was one. They could have stayed consistent with the mask, and they didn't. And a couple kills would have been better. A couple more lines thrown Alan Arkin's way because he's a good character. Maybe throw some jokes in, a couple more jokes in with LL. You had a good script. I mean, but I think Power Tripping Jamie came in and she's like, I don't like this. And I don't see Steve Miner having a big backbone to say, okay, we're not going to do. I mean, we're going to do this. We're not going to do this. I just don't see it. But yeah, score tweaks here and there. There was a script there. They just didn't act on what could have been.
You're muted.
Was I muted for that entire time?
I think so.
There are other scripts, obviously, in different directions they were considering for Halloween 7, if you will. One of them was Halloween the Two Faces of Evil by Robert Sapia. Like, people talk about, well, what's the next Halloween movie you do? Do you do a sequel to this? Do you do a sequel to that? You start with something new. Is Michael even involved? I would love to see a Halloween movie that's a sequel to H20. Resurrection just did not happen. Sequel to H20, and Michael lived, probably the same way he did in Resurrection, to be honest. And it's just set out in the middle of nowhere, kind of like, oh man, have you guys seen Hush by Flanagan?
Can't say that I have.
Neither of you seen the movie Hush by Mike Flanagan, huh? Oh wow, I'd put that way up the to-do list. It's inspired by Halloween, actually. It's a really good movie. So now I'm trying to think, like, just like this secluded area. I know the school's kind of secluded, but like, live this secluded life off in the middle of nowhere and have the movie follow Josh Hartnett and Michelle Williams, and maybe they have 3 or 4 kids, and have Michael show up in this like little cabin, well, not cabin, but like this little, like cottage country area out in the middle of nowhere, and do a low budget movie like that that's more character driven, and
like which Jason had in 3.
Sure, if you say so.
Yeah, something like that. Whole piece of crap.
I would never call Friday the 13th character driven, but that's just me.
No, I'm talking about the where he's staying at. That's what I mean, goof.
No, yeah, I mean more like maybe the remake. Where the remake where Jared Padalecki and all them end up.
Yeah, now that
kind of location in a Halloween movie where like the little community that lives out there is still celebrating Halloween, so you still have Halloween decorations, but give me Michael going after Josh Hartnett and Michelle Williams. Do I think you can get those two for the right price? You're not getting those two and Jamie Lee Curtis, and frankly, I wouldn't want Jamie Lee Curtis. Kill her off however you want. Kill her off in the opening scene if you're going to have her in it. But I wouldn't have her in it at all. I'd have her passed on, or maybe Michael got her years ago or whatever. Focus on them. I just think there's a really compelling story to do there with the surviving child of Laurie Strode and his wife and their family, and how has the trauma, if you will, affected them. And just it'd be a very different setting than what we've got for a Halloween movie too. So, I mean, hey, nobody's going to take my pitch, but I wouldn't mind something like that. And I do think if it did come out and, hey, the next Halloween movie is going to star Josh Hartnett and Michelle Williams, you're not going to catch me crying about it. I'd be fucking thrilled. I think that'd be incredible acting talent for that movie. What about you guys? Are you signing up for a Josh Hartnett, Michelle Williams-led Halloween H20 sequel at any point? We're not saying it's rumored, because I haven't heard of it, but I'd love it. I'd dig it.
Oh, I would too. I've been wanting them to do something with them two, or at least Josh Hartnett, for about 10 years now, because his start's kind of fallen to a point where he would be probably available and affordable. And I don't see Michelle Williams doing a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, maybe a period piece here and there, or kind of quirky movie here and there, but nothing. But this could be big budget if they played their cards right, and if they were smart about it. They could get both of them, and like you said, plop out some kids.
It doesn't need to be big budget.
No, low budget. Definitely low budget. I do not want... I know we got into this the last time you were on here, where you want the big budget movie, but I don't. I want the low budget indie pick set in the middle of nowhere, and like guys, Hush was made for $1 million. $1 million in like 2017 or whatever it was, 15 or whatever. You got to see it. It's fucking incredible, and there's just no reason the Halloween franchise can't thrive off that. Now, obviously, if you're going to do a movie that's compared to Hush, you have to sell Michelle Williams and Josh Hartnett on, hey, so we can't pay you, a massive amount of money, but we can give you points on the back end or whatever, and here's a really compelling story. Don't just do a run-of-the-mill slasher. Have something deep. I would really appreciate something like that. I also think the Josh Hartnett, Michelle Williams idea works for like a little 8-episode miniseries.
Yeah, you could do that for sure.
Their neighbors, the friends of the kids, the little community. To me, the next version of Michael Myers we are more likely to see is on the small screen. So if you're going to do it right.
Well, I mean, I agree. Obviously, you could have used, we'll do some speculation here. You could have taken with H2O. You could have, obviously, for me, I'll agree with you guys. Fix the mask. The movie was too bright for a slasher film. Too bright. For a Michael Myers film, there needs to be a lot of shadows, a lot of was he there, wasn't he there, things like that. Those types of tropes that were used back when Halloween first came out. If you're trying to harken back to that, give that type of feeling again, you want to have those types of notes in there where the mask is, if the mask is done right, it's not going to glow in the dark like apparently what Matt was talking to me about earlier, how it just seemed to just be bright and out there in H2O. But say they went the direction of, okay, he survives, but then we can flash forward, like you're suggesting, flash forward 10, 15, 20 years. Laurie's passed on, either a surviving Michael Goddard or just old age. You can sit there and you can even have them start the movie at her gravesite, where the two are there with their kids, paying their respects, and as they're walking away, you just see Michael in the background following them. But then again, your location idea is great because deep in the woods, in like a setting similar to the Friday the 13th reboot, you can play with the shadows, you can play with the sound, you can play with the music, and there's all these little suspenseful things you could do to help build tension, but also drive home the fact that they still have PTSD from what happened to them in H2O. And until the final reveal of he's alive, he's still there. It's one of those things where there are a lot of things they could have done a lot better in H2O that could have easily set up something like what you're suggesting. And I think that I would definitely buy into that, especially a more personal, psychological slasher film rather than just sprays of red blood everywhere, everybody screaming and running. Same stuff they've put out in the past. Something different, something personal would be absolutely amazing, and I'd be all for it.
So there's a psychological thriller out that I guess it's been out for a year. I've not seen it, but I've heard some positive things about it. It's not super well known, but it's I believe it's called Neon Lights with Kim Coates. I was watching an interview with him and Michael Rosenbaum on Inside of You, and just the concept of the movie sounded great. I know Matt has watched Natty Knox. I have not yet, and I definitely need to get on that. I heard that has some psychological aspects to it as well. So yes, like we've done the 80s, campy slasher. I'm not against going back to that once in a while. I really appreciated the second Fear Street movie, going back to that style of setting and giving us a movie that felt like that. But I want my Halloween story, whether it be in a video game like The Quarry or a movie or a TV series, I want it to be deeper. I want it to have something to bite into. I don't want just Michael kills these 5 randoms because they're in his way. I love the idea of, if we're going to do PTSD the proper way, I'm not saying the Gordon Green trilogy didn't perceive it right, but there are some things in Halloween Ends that just make you shake your fucking head and you go, how are they here when this is how she was in Halloween 2018? And it really, like, you really have to suspend your belief. So at the end of the day, do I think there's ever going to be a sequel to H2O? Probably not. But man, you could definitely pitch me on Josh Hartnett, Michelle Williams, whoever playing Michael in a 8-episode miniseries on Prime or something like that. I'd sign up if it was done right. Let Flanagan do it. He's contracted with the Prime. Anyways, we are going to move on from Halloween because there is some wrestling to talk about and drama. Again, it is 2023, not 2022, I swear. We'll be back in 1 minute with, and we're going to be joined by Jer from the Dark Match Drive, and he's going to fill out our roundtable, and we're going to get into the CM Punk, Elite, Nemeth, Jungle Boy, the mailman's hamster's neighbor's friend. Somebody's pissed somebody off. We're going to get into all that, and also All In and All Out, because there's 2 pretty big, massive shows that, in my opinion, are being affected by what's going on. And I don't just mean what's happened in the last couple of days either. So we'll be back in about a minute with that, and we'll see you on the flip side. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen, and we are here to talk some all elite wrestling and those guys way over in the corner over there who desperately need to be locked into a room for a couple of days with some therapists. Anyways, joining us from the Dark Match Drive, first time he's been on a little bit, it's Jer. What's going on, man?
Hey guys, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great, dude.
Oh, perfect. It's going okay. You know, trying to keep up to date with all this chaos. I thought we already did this a year ago. Why are we back here?
Right. I mean, I think we're going to get into that, why we're back here. But I just want to, I wish I had the material in front of me. If I forget anything, please feel free to interrupt. But essentially, this is what has happened. And we're not going to recap what happened a year ago and leading up to Collision starting. Just what's happened recently. And that is, I guess, Hangman Adam Page was apparently supposed to go to the arena on the weekend to record a segment that would air on Dynamite. I think it was PW that had that out at first. I don't remember. And then Fightful came out and said, and I think same with Voices of Wrestling, both those guys came out and said, and Nick Hausman said that Hangman was never at the arena and told to leave, but rather he didn't even get an opportunity to go to the arena. And obviously the belief there is CM Punk. Collision ends. CM Punk cracks this joke about seeing Hangman's toys in the local grocery store, and that's why they call him Hangman, as his toys are still on the shelf or whatever. It just seemed like a stupid rib, to be honest, and probably an ill-advised one that he didn't need to be making. And I'm a Punk guy. I also don't think it's as bad as half the people are making it out to be. But either way, he made it and went on for about a minute or two. It was not 10 minutes like I've seen out there. If you watch the 10-minute clip, it's about 60 to 90 seconds where he's going on about the Hangman stuff, and then it trails. I think Dax takes over for a bit. We've found out since then that Punk has apparently sent Hangman a text message and has apologized, I guess. We don't know how that's been received unless that's gone down in the last 5 hours. I wouldn't know. But we also know that Punk had a situation with Ryan Nemeth, who is a well-known elite guy who, I guess this happened at Collision. Punk did the one Collision in Chicago, and Nemeth had made the comment during Punk's return promo about being the softest man alive. And anyways, there's a bunch of shit going on. I have my own take on it, but I'm actually going to go last on this one. I just want anybody to interject where you guys feel free, because I do want all of this to get to All In and All Out. Like, they're about to do a fucking show in front of 80,000 people, and not only do I think this doesn't help, I think this entire situation for the last year has also butchered what could have been a much better card. And I look at I'm not the super wrestling diehard guy Jer is, or even Matt and Randy, really. Those guys are both big-time wrestling guys. But for me, I look at the All In card and go, this doesn't really feel like All In, per se. It feels like, how can we Band-Aid this show so that this person doesn't work with that person? And I don't just mean Punk and the Elite. I mean, then there's the injury issues. It just doesn't feel like All In. It just feels like a show in Vegas. It's about to be a pay-per-view, I guess. And I think it all stems from this situation. I got my own thoughts. Jared, we haven't heard from you in a while, so let's let you kick off. The only thing I ask everybody is this. We're not CM Punk. We're not the Elite. We're not Tony Khan. So I don't mind if it gets animated. No attacking each other here, please. I've literally watched a couple of podcasts that are on YouTube where the people, like, it's almost like they're going to melt down and not be friends anymore because they're on opposite sides of the fence. And it's just like, are you kidding me? Come on.
Yeah, because me trying to do an RKO on Randy didn't work out too well. So
I know it looks like it. No, I'm kidding.
Damn.
Don't worry, I'm still feeling my last RKO attempt. I haven't walked the same since. And then my kid tries to do it to me every day too. So there's that. Jer, where are you with all this, man? I'm pretty sure you're more team elite. I don't know where Randy and Matt fall, but if I'm team anything, I'm team the head leader of the company is the biggest one at fault for all this, in my opinion. I don't know any other way to put it than that. You either have leadership or you don't.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, you don't hear these stories coming out of WWE because they run a very tight ship. They don't let other people run the show. You know, you go to Vince's office and that's the final say, or you talk to Hunter. I think Punk knows he carries some weight in the locker room, which is fair. And I think he throws it around a fair amount, more so than anyone else in the company, except maybe Jericho has a voice. But I think that's why all this is coming out also, because it is a guy like Punk throwing his weight around, saying, hey, we're going to do it this way, we're going to do it that way, so on and so forth. And I know he's not necessarily helping with the booking and whatnot, but I don't understand his... See, the Hangman thing is interesting because I can't imagine Punk having enough leeway to say this guy who's a main eventer in our company is not allowed in the building. That just feels like a mishap, or Hangman... Somebody should have let Hangman know way beforehand if that's the case.
Did you see the report from Hausman where I guess Punk's side saying, I never said Hangman can't come to the building, but I did say the Daniels and Nemeth thing, but I didn't say anything about Hangman or Hardy. He's denying having anything to do with those two.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, I understand the Nemeth thing completely. You know, a guy mouths off on Twitter and, you know, got to pay the due, right? And the Daniels thing is... I think that is Punk being petty because of his connection to Ace Steel. And I get it. Like, oh, my friend doesn't... Whatever. Like, Christopher Daniels is a way better wrestler than almost anyone involved in this situation anyway. So Punk can sit that one out. Tony Khan needs to get these guys on the same page because we are less than 2 weeks from their biggest show ever. And we're not talking about the show. We're not talking about that FTR Young Bucks match. We're not talking about the potential Punk Joe match. We're talking about this shit again. And it just makes the company look bad. And Tony Khan has weight and he refuses to throw it around. You know, he refuses to do anything beyond a slap on the wrist here and there. Punk would have been back long way before Collision if he didn't have the injury.
Oh, I agree. Because
Tony Khan is essentially Punk's lapdog, and he acts like it.
Yeah,
Punk has not faced discipline for anything in 2 years in the company. And I get that he's the top guy on the show, and I get that he's the name brand, one of the name brand guys in the company, and I get that. And I get that Punk has a good mind for the business, but you cannot sacrifice everyone else on your roster to make Punk happy. Punk can be unhappy and still work there. People will just tell him where to go.
See, I don't think that's going to happen, though. I don't think that's the dynamic that has come to be on that show. It's from all accounts. well, Collision might not be CM Punk's show. It seems like he's had a massive hand on who's going to be involved, how they're going to do it. There's been pictures of him literally peeking from behind the stage while things are still going on. I definitely understand the. Before I'm going to give Randy and Matt a chance to dive in here. I just want to bring this up. It's not even done from like a wrestling perspective either. Just almost like a mental health thing, because I can tell you how I would react to this. I don't view this as 95% Punk, and I'm biased. I have to admit it. But when I sit there and I look at all the evidence and you read both sides of the story, it comes across far more like 50-50 to me. I do think Hangman, other than his stupid thing that he did there on TV that time, hasn't really been involved in any of the shit, it seems like. But like, you have EVPs of the company that have not acted like EVPs, in my opinion. Frankly, shouldn't be EVPs. They're talent, and Punk shouldn't have the power that he has either. But when you have a situation that needs to be resolved, whether... See, this is what I feel like people think if they all get into a room together, that means they have to work together. That means they're doing a program. And I don't view it that way. I view it as you have to get all those parties into the exact same room, whether there's security there or, they all have some guests there. Yeah, it's not going to be a conversation. It's going to be probably an hour or 2 hours of shouting and yelling. And but until you do that, this is going to happen, because I'm assuming that Phil Brooks, the person, is just beside himself at the idea, how the fuck can we not at least talk about this? How can we not talk? I don't know how Tony Khan, is the guy in charge, has not forced this to happen, because he does have that ability. And
he couldn't force it to happen, so he made 2 shows.
Yeah, right? Like, and for me, sorry, I know I jumped my spot in line here, but like, for me, it is more 50-50. Like, people go, well, why isn't Punk punished? But like, the Bucks came back and literally, their second show back or something, second or third show back, might have been a little after that. They're mocking Punk in the middle of the ring with no TV build-up or payoff that's going to come. This is what we keep hearing from the Observer and anyone from the Elite side is, well, don't worry, there's going to be no payoff to any of this. It's like, well, there was no payoff to you going and mocking the guy on national TV when he had no way of replying. And I'm not saying Punk's the victim here, because it's very much 50-50 and a complete lack of leadership back there. To me, you have to get all parties in the same fucking room. And frankly, I know this might sound insane. If it doesn't happen in the next 7 to 10 days, Tony Khan has completely failed this fucking situation. And my solution is, if you're not going to work together and make money, if that's just decided and not possible, then the hard brand split, it more or less might as well be that already, but make it official. Have a hard brand split, have Dynamite, have Collision. You already have fans that seem to be gravitating to one show over the other anyways, whether it's vice versa. But it's either hard brand split or find a way to work together. But to me, you have to communicate, because you have 2 pay-per-views that you're about to ask your audience $100 in the span of a week, $100 American, I guess, a week for, which is insane given what's going on in the world today in terms of finances. And your all-in card looks like, Frank, I'm sorry, like, it's, to me, that's not all in. It's full gear, 20 whatever. It's not as good as it could be, and I'm not saying it had to be Punk versus or it had to be CMFTR versus the Elite either. It just seems like there's a lot of stuff that is being held up by other things, and it can't continue the way it is. And frankly, they should have known that before. And as a guy who has gotten pissed off at other people before, and been in the wrong and sometimes been in the right, there's nothing that will get under your skin more than than not even have to not have the ability to be heard or to at least discuss things to get it out of your system. That's just going to keep boiling up, and the explosions are just going to happen over and over again. And I'm speaking to you from experience. I've never made millions of dollars or been a professional wrestler, but I have been a guy that has not had the ability to get things out that he's needed to get out before, and it's ended poorly multiple times. So, Randy, what's your take on all this, man? Is it fixable? Like, what now?
Of course it's fixable. Anything's fixable as long as you have parties willing to do it. See, the thing here, and I know I sent this in the chat, I think yesterday. One of the biggest issues for right now for Tony Khan is the fact that dude's got his hands in so many different things. He's spread so thin. He really needs to have a number two who is respected by everybody, but is also a bit of a hard ass that will not put up with the high school mentality in general of the he said, she said, the, anything that tends to happen in an AEW locker room. It's just one of those types of people that's just going to be like, look, sit down, figure this shit out. We're in a business of making money. We just got to get this figured out. And the problem with Tony Khan is he is such a fanboy. And don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with that. The man loves professional wrestling. That's the reason we had AEW. It's the reason why he bought Ring of Honor. It's the reason why we were able to get Forbidden Door and some of these matches that we never thought humanly possible because of the stranglehold WWE had on everything for so long. So we got to give him props for that. The fact that his love, his passion for wrestling has brought us to this. Unfortunately, when you have that sort of thing, you're going to have these volatile personalities that are going to clash, and that's pretty much what happened. I understand the idea of why Punk said, sent Nemeth home. With Daniels, I really was kind of like, he's the head of talent relations. You really shouldn't just be like, you need to go. But he also was one of the guys in the room, but he also helped break up the fight in general. So I guess maybe, and of course, obviously with Ace Steel, that's really the real reason behind it. I was glad to hear that Punk reached out to Hangman and apologized. That was cool. Obviously, he felt what he said didn't go over the way he wanted it to, and upon listening back, he was just probably like, nope, that's not right. So the fact that he admitted he was wrong and stood up for that, perfect. I know him and Hangman, there's no NDAs between those two. I know the Elite and Punk, they have the NDA, so they really can't discuss things like that outside of closed doors, I'm assuming. But the Impact right now, I feel like maybe by Saturday, we'll have a more fleshed out all-in card. That I'm going to assume that's the only thing I can think of at this point because it'll be a week out. I mean, you could, I guess, throw a surprise match on Dynamite before All In, but I feel like by Saturday everything should be squared away. The biggest issue here, though, is you got a pay-per-view the week after, and with that, you've got to figure out your matches there. Now, obviously, we're going to get Hobbs and Miro, which is fine. That should be a really solid match, but that's only one match for All Out. So the question, and the thing is how many title matches are you going to have at All In? Are you going to have? I mean, obviously, we've got at least 3. You're going to have 4. You're going to have no. You're not going to. You're going to have 3. It's like, what are you going to? Are you going to try to save some for All Out? So you've really kind of booked yourself into a real corner there with having the back-to-back. I think it is possible maybe Wembley just wasn't available, and that's the reason why they had to book it back-to-back. Maybe it was because one's in a different country. I don't know the reasoning behind it. Do I feel like we could still get a solid show out of it? Yeah. But I do feel like if we can get Punk and the Elite at least on the same page. They don't have to like each other. They don't have to work together. If they can at least just squash whatever's going on, Tony Khan kind of wrangling some stuff in. I mean, hell, even send Bryan Danielson out to do something because obviously he's helping book the matches. So for a Collision, obviously he could, do something because he's got some form of power at least. But I don't know. It's going to be one of those things where if this was the 80s, early 90s, we would have never heard of any of this stuff because there was no social media back then. And I only feel the reason this is in the forefront is because of social media, and that's fine. It is what it is. But I'm neither for or against either side. I just feel like if in the interest of business, just get it figured out. Even if it's just a gentleman's handshake and just be like, yeah, we'll get it worked out somehow. We'll figure it out. I mean, it doesn't sound like Omega's against the idea of working with Punk. It just seems like it's the Bucks anyway.
I mean, if he's not against the idea of working with Punk, then that match probably should have been on this card or one of the two cards coming up here. I don't know if they have any idea what the hell they're going to do with Punk at the United Center. Like, I really don't want to see Punk Joe All In, Punk Joe again at All Out, or even Punk Starks. Like, it's a lot of money to pay for matches we've already seen on TV. I will say this, though. I think that they absolutely have to sit down before this pay-per-view. Like, if I'm Tony Khan, you can't go to London and then the headline be, okay, so they fought again, only this time Brody Lee was in the room and killed everybody. I don't want that to be the headline. I just think as much as I wanted to see a feud come from this in a program, and would have loved even if it was Punk Hangman 2 or Punk Omega, even if Punk doesn't work with the Bucks. And I thought, FTR doing the Bucks thing would have helped a little, but it doesn't seem to have. I just think, for me anyways, Collision has been just a far better all-around show than Dynamite since Collision has started. So just leave those people alone. Let them do their fucking show. You can keep adding to their roster talent, keep Dynamite with Dynamite, Collision with Collision. Through 8 weeks until this shit, it had been working. Some might argue, well, people were sent home. It's like, yeah, it also makes me wonder, the Christopher Daniels thing also makes me go, well, we still don't really know what happened at Brawl Out other than, third-hand reports, really. And it's like, Punk got painted in this corner where, like, a lot of the fan base, I mean, the media scrum was stupid, no doubt about that. But in terms of, like, the attack, like, they just assumed, it has to be Punk. He's gone. He's going to be fired. I don't know if the Bucks thought it was going to be a given. He was going to be gone too, maybe. I don't know. But the guy's still employed and arguably has more power than he did prior to the media scrum. So what's that tell you? Dude's probably not going anywhere anytime soon, so you better find a way to make it work.
Well, and I think it's because he understood that Collision was his show. That's why all of a sudden you're seeing him flex a little bit more than he probably should. Some decisions I'm fine with. If there's certain guys you don't want to work with or don't feel like would add to your product, that's fine. I'm cool with that. But if you're going to do stuff for petty reasons because you feel like you can, then I have a bit of an issue.
Yeah. It's like when I heard the possibility that he might have prevented Hangman from coming to the arena, it's like, that was your opportunity right there for an in. Why would you block that? That's why when I read it, I was like, what? And then part of me is also like, did Punk know that Hangman was supposed to come to the arena, and then for whatever reason he didn't, and then he goes out and does that, almost like, why the fuck didn't you show up? I don't know. I'm throwing that out there myself. Not that Hangman, I'm not blaming him for any of this, to be honest. I just think that there's a ticking time bomb here, and if you don't get everybody in the same room prior to All In beginning, something bad is going to happen. It's just mathematics, in my opinion. Mathematics of the way humans function. Matt, before you pass out over there, man, is there any reasonable solution to the CM Punk Tony Khan Elite stuff?
Yeah, get them in a room together. I mean, I'm more on the Punk side because I think the fact that Young Bucks have the power and are EVPs, they're acting like little bitches. I don't want to fight him. I fight him, but I don't want to fight him. And Tony Khan just wants to keep everybody happy. And maybe Tony needs to put.
Well, that's a mistake right there. If that's his goal, to keep everybody happy, you're guaranteed to fail at life, basically.
Well, I know, but I think he's just trying to make everybody happy within this salute with them, and it's not going to work because the more and more you're going to see it, Punk's going to start saying more stuff. Young Bucks are going to start saying more stuff. And then we're going to be like we were a year ago. Something's going to pop off. And, I mean, Tony just needs to get them in the room. He's like, fuck this shit. I own you. Y'all going to get along together and make beautiful matches. You know? I mean, it's sad because they're taking away some great possible matches. Kenny versus Punk is going to be would be a hell of a match. Now we got to get Samoa and Punk again. Who really wants to see that? Not me.
You may not want to see it, but it's actually going to be a good match regardless.
Yeah, I think it'll be steps above their collision match, which I enjoyed, but I think it'll be good. But I'll say this: I didn't want to see that match at All In. That to me didn't scream an All In match. I think there's so many different things you could have done with Punk at All In, and it just seems like there's all these balls up in the air with Punk. It's like, okay, so he very much has referenced MJF on screen, but MJF's working with Cole right now. Then you had the Bullet Club Gold stuff that didn't really ever come to a head. Then you have the Ricky Starks stuff. Doesn't seem like that's going to go anywhere. Or maybe it does. And then also, by the way, why is he not fighting? What's with the 30-day suspension? I know storyline wise, but like, is he hurt?
Haven't heard anything about an injury.
I mean, for as long as I can remember, even like back when Cody was still with AEW, Starks has always had neck issues. Now I know he had an injury, but it's possible maybe that there's something lingering that's kind of bugging him in his neck that's stemming from that. I really don't know, but that's the only thing I can think of currently off the top of my head. I'm sure as the week goes on, we'll probably hear more about it.
I couldn't think of a worse thing you could do with Ricky Starks than build him up the way you just did. In my opinion, more successful than has been done in his time in AEW, and then oh, by the way, you're not going to wrestle for a month, be a manager. What? Did Vince McMahon sneak in the building? Like
more like Vince Russo.
So I hope there's more to that. I don't know, guys. At the end of the day, I'd love the program. I think that you're supposed to do what's, especially if you're an executive vice president, and I'll throw Punk in there too, since it seems like he's acting like one on Collision. You're supposed to do what's best for your company, whether you're working together or not. That means don't go, post show and do the Hangman thing when you know it's going to ignite stuff. I know there's the whole he was trying to work himself into an angle thing, and like, I get it. I'm sure. Doesn't anybody find it kind of weird that Punk's All In match still isn't announced, and then you have All Out a week later? Like, I'm sure he would have loved to convince Hangman to do something at All Out, even. And Hangman, I believe, technically doesn't have an official match yet, but I think there's rumored to be one. They got to meet. Like, to me, after what has happened again The meeting has to happen. It can't be a no. And I do think when the Bucks say no, we're not going to talk, that is just as bad as what Punk did post-show. You're an executive vice president. You don't have to work with the guy. But for the sake of your fucking company that your name is literally on, you got to sit down, get over this, and work towards the same goal of making AEW better, whether it's on 2 completely different shows and you see each other 4 or 5 times a year in crossover pay-per-views or not. And I don't know if Tony's going to do it. And if Tony doesn't do it, I'm sitting here literally saying, guys, be ready for another media scrum or some fucking ridiculous report to come out from one of these sides. And like the other thing you got to worry about now is the one thing that's been consistent with all these reports is the main guys that are featured on Collision apparently don't have a problem with Punk and view what he's done there as very, very good. So then it becomes you got this team versus that team if it's not already that to begin with. And again, not in like a, hey, we're going to do the Collision versus Dynamite match, in a more like a, hey, this is high school and we got all this fucking drama that's getting in the way of us putting our best foot forward. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen. Jer, what do you think, man? Do you think that this meeting could happen prior to All In? They're going to be in the same place, I guess, 8 days from now. But I have doubts on Tony Khan's willingness to force this.
I mean, Punk has been very vocal about his willingness to have a meeting with these guys, and the Bucks have been not as willing, which, okay, but it's been almost a year, and it is still having effects on this company. That's not good, you know? And you'd think that Punk being on one show and the Elite being on the others, it's a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, because somehow Hangman had to go to Punk's show. The whole split show plan blew up, you know, and, you know, that's not Hangman's fault. He was asked to go.
Also, who's making that call? Like, is Tony Khan making that call? So it makes me think Tony Khan and Punk want the same thing, and they're kind of, well, to be honest, Tony Khan just doesn't have the balls to do it, it seems like.
Yeah, like, why? And because Hangman showed up and got sent elsewhere, I mean, now it's a news item. You know, nobody thought 3 steps ahead of this. Like, why? The second Hangman gets that plane ticket, he should call Tony Khan and be like, you're walking in that building with me, because, you know, something happened, you know. And I don't know if the blowback's on Punk or the blowback's on somebody else, but you can't keep running a company this way. You know, you have to do something to get these people on the same page, even if they're not on the same show. And I think you have to get them in a room, lock the door, and just let them get it out. They're all adults. They're not 5 years old. You cannot baby any of them. Bill Watts would have fired every single one of them 35 years ago for this.
I think there's like a real, again, I only can say what I see on TV or on social media or on Being the Elite. I think there's like one of the big problems here is you got a big time personality difference. You have the Bucks, who are kind of we'll take shots, but we won't actually come face to face or talk. And then you have Punk, who is the type of guy who, I'll just punch you in the fucking face if you're going to do that. And they're 2 very different schools of thought. And I've been in that weird, complex dynamic before myself, not in a wrestling business, that's for damn sure. And it is hard because just fundamentally, you're completely different people with completely different takes on not only what you perceive as the right thing to do in the wrestling industry, but in just life in general and how to behave. And that's where I think there's a real problem. Like, as much money as he's making until this gets solved, like it's just gonna keep happening. Punk's gonna punch someone, or the Elite are just gonna keep doing what they've been doing, and it's just not gonna get any better. And instead of talking about a fucking badass main event House of Black versus CMFTR match, which I thought was fan-fucking-tastic, we're talking about, is there going to be a fight backstage in a couple weeks? You know, like, not good. Anybody have anything else they want to touch on the drama stuff before I move us a little more towards All In, All Out?
I think it's time for Tony Khan to just stop being neutral. And rather than being neutral and trying to just appease everybody, it's time he just says, you know what, I got to stand up for my company and do what's best for business. And that really, if he can do that, if he can separate his fandom from that and just say, I got to set my fandom aside, I got to swallow my pride, this has gone on long enough. I know he can do it. He just has to make the choice to do it. And he may upset some guys by doing that, but it doesn't matter. At this point, you're getting a lot of negative press that you don't need. And I know some people are like, well, any type of headlines is, gets eyeballs on you. Well, you don't want this type of, in the wrestling business, you don't want this. I don't want a repeat of WCW. That's what I don't want. Because we all know what that was like by the end. It was hot garbage. And there's too much talent on this roster to turn it into a flaming pile of goat shit, like what we're seeing the potential we're seeing right now if these guys can't get on the same page.
Yeah, I think the likelihood of getting them on the same page is probably not great, in my opinion. We're gonna get Matt out of here. Matt, thanks for coming to do this, man. Go get some sleep. Travel safe tomorrow, man. I just think sorry, let's move him here. There we go. You haven't been able to get them in the same place for a year. I have a hard time believing you're going to get them in the same room, even though they're going to be in the same building multiple times over the next, I guess, 3 times in the span of 10 days. They'll be in the same room or same building. You got to find a way to do it. Simple as that. And if it sounds terrible, but if someone's not willing to do it, then fuck them, sit them. Sit them down, suspend them, whatever. And I get it. The Elite all just signed new contracts, but you also have another guy who's on a long-term deal and really only used something like 14 months of what's either a 4 or 5 year deal. So you got lots of money tied up in a bunch of people that don't like one another. And the problem is it has divided the fan base, in my opinion. And I just hope something positive comes of it at the end. Even if it's not a program, something, just get them on the same page. I do want to ask you guys about Jungle Boy, Jack Perry. Not a big fan of his. I'm just not the first time I've heard of backstage stuff with him. And yet and this is where I start to have a problem, is you had a bunch of Punk stuff come out and he got criticized for some of it, and I totally agree. He should have apologized to Hangman, and he did, and hopefully it ends up being more than just a text message too eventually. But then you have the Jack Perry story come out, and then I see people saying, well, fuck CM Punk for this. And I'm just like, what? The dude was literally asked to go do something, and so he did it, and wasn't the only person backstage going, yeah, you're being dumb.
Well, I mean, even Tony Schiavone was telling him no, that's dangerous. You shouldn't do that. So,
Jerry, your thoughts on that situation? Do you think Punk stepped over the line there?
I think Punk has evidence to be saying, hey, don't use real glass. And if you don't believe me, go ask Goldberg what happened 23 years ago. He put his forearm through the door window of a car and basically cut his tendons to ribbons on Thunder one night. And no, even death matches, like the most insane death matches, will use fake glass. It still has the same visual effect, and unless you know, it doesn't matter. Like, wrestling is a visual effect. It doesn't matter. You don't need to do this real shit. You know? Oh, hey, Jungle Boy kicked in that window. Somebody's gonna go post on like, yeah, but it was fake. Like, whatever.
Yeah, the
Wrestling's at work.
The report seems to indicate he threw a. Well, he was very against other people's take on what should be done. We'll say that.
Yeah, he stood there and beat his chest.
I like, and this is what I'm talking about. Take the Punk and Elite stuff aside. Like, this shouldn't even have been a question. This should be fake glass. Like, it's health and safety. Like, literally, I know it's professional wrestling. I get it. But it just seems like the most stupid fucking thing that you could fight over. And it's like, well, how many other fucking things are happening like this where something's completely avoidable, but you get some kid, for all intents and purposes, want to do it his way? Like, it does seem like there's a lot of that goes on in this company. We've heard it before where the kids don't listen to the vets or whatever. And it's just like, well, I mean, if these are some of the decisions being made, well, I don't know, man.
I mean, do you think Nick Gage and Chris Jericho used real glass in their death match? Doubtful. I mean, do you think that glass table that Mox suplexed Kenny Omega through in the very first episode of Dynamite was real glass? Doubtful. So what makes you think that it's going to be advantageous, given the past history of what we've seen other wrestlers and real glass has happened? And, you know, no, it's just, you're risking your health for no reason other than a shock and awe effect. And that's just ludicrous. I can almost guarantee you that because he's viewed as one of the pillars, that's the only reason that he threw a temper tantrum.
Well, I think he found a hard way that it's not going to fly. At least, what was it that Punk apparently said? If you want to do that shit, go to Wednesdays or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which right there, like, that's the dynamic, like, to me, and that's the dynamic they've presented on TV too. Collision doesn't feel like, oh, okay, so we've seen Dynamite Part 1 on Wednesday, now we're seeing Dynamite Part 2 on Saturday. To me, and Jerry, you would know more than I. You watch, I'm sure you know, wrestling matches that are happening right now at 11:19 Eastern in towns we've never even heard of. But Collision just feels like something completely separate from Dynamite, and I'm okay with it, and I think they've done a really good job with it. So get on the same page, don't fucking work together if that's the case, and go make both shows as good as you fucking can. That's what I would do.
The product matters more than anything. That's what the people tune into. They don't give a shit about Punk and how he really feels about Hangman or whatever. Like, it's wrestling. Like, come on, man.
JT says, how can you be the EVP and not be able to sit down and work out problems? I agree, but I also agree with the take that how can you be the boss and not have made them sit down to at least converse? Like, the conversation might go poorly, last 10 minutes and it's over, but how can you not at least have attempted to have that conversation? I totally get it. Trey says AEW is honestly a shit show and can only handle so much of it. I've been much more into WWE. I don't know 80% of what goes on in WWE anymore. I I see the odd match pop up. Usually it's like a Roman match or a Lesnar match, and I'll tune into that. That's about it for my WWE knowledge. Wayne says AEW doesn't have a locker room general. I would say it kind of sounds like Punk is the Collision general and Jericho is the Dynamite general, and the leader. I don't really know what they are. They have their little clique or their big clique, I guess. But yeah.
From what I understand, Moxley, Jericho, Danielson, all of them have tried to take up more of a leadership role in the locker room for everybody.
Well, that's the thing. They've got good guys in the locker room who can, lead people and say, this is the way it's supposed to be done. The problem is, Punk comes across as a guy who does it in a my way or the highway kind of way rather than this is what works kind of way. I don't know. That just might be Punk's personality, and it might rub people the wrong way, and it is what it is.
Yeah, I could see that. I definitely could. I could see some people perceiving it that way, and it really not sitting well with them. Totally, I get that. Before we go here, let's just talk about some of the in-ring stuff here. And let's just assume there's no magical solution that's going to allow for any sort of Punk elite match at either show that's coming up. We assume it's Punk Joe at All In, but I'm still not entirely sure, considering how long they're dragging out the announcement of this. I'm assuming it is, though. So you also have Adam Cole MJF. What happens at All Out? What are you coming back with a week later? I'm assuming Punk Joe is going to be for the real World's Championship. And then I'm assuming he's going to defend. I would assume Punk goes over and defends it again in Chicago. I just refuse to believe they're going to run it back with Joe a third time the next week later. So we'll start with Punk. What are you doing with Punk the very next week in Chicago? And what are you doing with Cole MJF? Because you're going to have them on All Out as well.
Well, Cole MJF are going to defend the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles at All Out.
And you're okay with that booking?
Oh, yeah. It's fucking great. It is the most insane thing in the world. Putting your main event guys on the pre-show, and then they go sit backstage for 3.5 hours, and then they come out for the main event. Fucking great.
Those two are definitely the best thing they got going right now. I love their vignettes. They're so hilarious.
Oh, I more so meant like and this is why I think you just need to make the Real World's Championship like official. Is to me, you can't have MJF not defend the World Heavyweight Champion, AEW World Heavyweight title at All Out. Like he has to defend it, in my opinion. I don't think he's gonna. Every rumor I've heard seems to be some sort of either tag title match or group match or whatever. I know Johnny was telling me about a possible group match that he thought might happen.
What did he say?
I think he said it would be like MJF, Adam Cole, and I could be mixing this up. I think he said the Elite against United Kingdom and something. There was another part to that.
Okay.
But like it'd be like a big like 6v6 match.
Yeah. I mean, it's a night off for those guys, basically, if they do that.
Yeah, but what about the people paying $100 in the span of 7 days? Don't you like? To me, again, I'm picky. Okay, so like, I'm gonna buy both of these shows more than likely. But for me, that's just not fucking good enough. And nor is the all-in card in front of 80,000 people. I know I'm picky. I want something else, but like, I just think the MJF Adam Cole shit deserves so much more than something like that.
Well, I think what we're going to see with those two is the planting of the seeds of who's going to screw over who first. And honestly, I think it's going to end up being Adam Cole, and I think he's going to end up forming a new stable with the Kingdom and Roderick Strong, and I think that's what's going to happen. and then we're going to get that babyface MJF run, like total run with him. That at some point, and maybe we'll get the seeds for a heel Punk, so that we end up having that title unification match at some point this year, or maybe early next year. But it's eventually we're gonna get MJF versus Punk. It's gonna happen. Now, you're talking about All Out, and I thought about it. Why can't we have Punk versus Malachi Black for the Real World Championship at All Out?
I'd be okay with that. You won't see me complain on that one.
That would be a banger of a match.
And they planted the seeds somewhat, at least, because Punk wasn't involved in the 6-man, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
especially with their little stare off as they sat in the middle of the ring, just staring at each other.
Yeah, comparing cupcake recipes,
muffin recipes. Hey, I've been a huge fan of Malachi Black. I don't think they've maybe utilized him the best of ways during his time in AEW, but I really enjoy when he does get time. I think my thing is he just hasn't had enough time. So say that they're either defending the tag titles or a group match. Randy says Punk versus Malachi Black at All Out. I'm assuming like it's Chicago, and if the Real World Championship's getting defended again, I have a feeling Punk's going on last. I don't think you're putting Punk versus Ricky Starks again at All Out. Now maybe.
I mean, if they do a gimmick match, they could.
I could also see maybe Punk versus Starks versus Joe, or Punk versus Starks versus Joe versus White, something like that, that really features the Collision guys. And I just wouldn't want another one-on-one match. A gimmick match I'd sign up for, but not a one-on-one match.
Well, and don't forget, if we're talking about the All Out card, the potential for the fact that now that we're seeing the Acclaimed starting to get back into the mix of the tag match, and maybe you get the Acclaimed versus FTR at All Out as a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's you got to put them somewhere, considering they're finally starting to get some momentum again, getting back into the thick of the tag division.
That's the other thing, right? With all this is you bring up the belts. You brought them up a couple of times. There's no hard brand split at the moment. I do think the solution to all this is probably going to have to be like an official hard brand split. But you have the tag titles and the 6-man titles on Collision, essentially. Which makes me go, man, does FTR lose to the Bucks at All In? Really hope not. But also, like, if FTR stand on Collision, then that really takes them out of the tag titles. Or does the Ring of Honor tag titles become like one of the show's tag? Like, there's other dominoes that are affected by, like, everyone's just like, oh, Punk Elite, but there's so many other dominoes that are affected by this that's holding everything up. That's why I think the All Out card has been hurt by this, because I think, what did I read the other day? That one of the plans was going to be the Elite versus the Dark Order or something like that at All Out, or the Dark Order and some, or not, sorry, at All In, and someone else. I forget the guy's name, but and I just kind of like, that's just not an all-in match for me.
Well, the Dark Order thing is really weird, because over the past month, they've been baby faces in Ring of Honor, yet heels in AEW. So I don't know what the hell they're doing with them.
Well, and I think the reason for the semi-heel turn in AEW is just the whole issue with, all of a sudden, Adam Page has just gone right back to the Elite and really isn't giving them a second thought. So obviously they're just, they're acting out because they're hurt. At least
Yeah,
that's
that's
kind
true.
of how I'm looking at it. It's
Yep.
not to say that they're not faces, but honestly, I like the Dark Order when it has an edge to it.
I agree. They have a purpose and they're angry about it, and they're a lot more believable that way rather than, lackeys for Hangman, basically.
I remember their debut. I remember when they debuted. I didn't know who they were, but they debuted, and I forget who they dominated. They dominated someone in the middle of the ring. They just ripped them apart. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, and it was the ending segment on Dynamite too. Everyone was like, "What the fuck?"
But yeah, no, Jerry, if you're a betting man, dude, not necessarily what you would do, but where are you placing your bet on who Punk faces at All Out, and if it is their ROH tag titles that are defended, is it just against United Empire again?
I would assume something like that. I mean, the only reason I can see the multi-man happening instead would be because, okay, you got the United Empire now feuding with MJF and Cole, and then you've got the dynamic of Ospreay and Omega again. And so I think there's enough intertwining pieces that they've kind of put in play where it's an intriguing match, that it's not just a throwaway, I guess 12-man tag or whatever it would be. But for Punk, like, I understand that they're putting heat on Ricky Starks by, the whole situation with Ricky Steamboat and all that. But like, when you got a hot heel like that, you don't want to take him off TV for a month. So I don't know if there's an issue behind that, but I'm afraid he's going to be cooled off if they keep him off TV too long. And I don't see them doing any rematches from one to the other as far as the pay-per-views go. So Punk could very easily do, like a Malachi Black or something. And I mean, I think All Out would be okay with no 6-man tag title match. So, I mean, and Punk doesn't really have many options at the top right now, because he's worked Starks, he's worked Joe. There's like, I can't think of anyone that would just slot in there and feel like a top main event guy. And you can't build an entire feud for a guy in a week. So it's something, the pieces have to be moving before All In, where they can slot a guy in and be like, okay, this makes sense for Punk to wrestle this guy a week later or whatever.
See, that's what frustrates me about the MJF Adam Cole booking. I get it, they want to do the tag team thing. And there's another domino, is maybe you can't unify if you think it's going to end up resulting in a hard brand split and you need 2 champs. How long have we been muted? The entire time?
A little bit.
Jesus. Apologies. That's what frustrates me with the booking for Cole and MJF. And that is not to date. It's been really entertaining. But I go with the tag title thing, and I'm like, did we really need that? Do we need the Ring of Honor tag titles? In my opinion, you don't. The angle has been that good. Okay, so then it's like, why? Like, to me, the thing that made the most sense in terms of having like a big storyline payoff come out of all this is you have Punk interrupt the Cole MJF match. I don't know who comes out on top. Maybe it's just a squash. And maybe you don't want the main event to be a squash at Wembley and end in disqualification. I don't know. But then you still go to All Out in a triple threat match with all of them involved, possibly. And that's where you get a MJF Cole breakup. But maybe that's too soon. They want them to stay together. But like, to me, that sells way more pay-per-views than CM Punk versus Ricky Starks 3 and MJF and Adam Cole versus whatever tag team, the Acclaimed or something at All Out. That's just me, though. Maybe it's too fast. Maybe the timing didn't work out. I don't know. These don't feel like incredibly big pay-per-view cards, and I feel like they should have been two of the biggest. Like, this was a chance to make a massive statement. It doesn't appear like they're going to do that. And part of the reasons, so many of the backstage complications. Like, does Jericho have anything for it? I think he's Osprey, right? That's the rumor.
Yeah, I think the plan is Osprey, and they have to pull the trigger on that this week with Don Callis and whatnot, right? Because the show's in less than 2 weeks, and there is no build for that right now.
Yeah, and so far the rumors going for Omega is him teaming up with Kota Ibushi and someone else against Takeshita and a couple other guys. I can't remember off the top of my head who they are.
And like, that's all in?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, Jerry, you can tell me to shut up. I get it. I got to complain for a second. I'm not a big Elite guy. But Kenny Omega's fucking amazing. How the fuck are you having All In and Kenny Omega's match is a 6-man tag match? Like, I get it. You can only have so many singles. But to me, that just screams bad booking. Not that I would know. Again, Monday morning quarterback here. But I don't like it, like, at all. Like, I'm pretty underwhelmed so far by the All In card, if I'm being honest.
I think the appeal to that would be just more Ibushi, more than anything else.
Yeah, because even Kota Ibushi, he's only Blood and Guts match was like only his second match in like 3 years, and that he was complaining about the fact that he just got tacks in his feet, so that he just couldn't move around the ring like he wanted to, and so he even felt like he was saying that it wasn't up to his standards. So I'm assuming that giving him another chance, especially at All In, that we would see more of what we expected to see at Blood and Guts out of Ibushi, if that is the what they're going to do.
Sorry, who did you say they were rumored to go against?
It was Takeshita, and there was 2 other guys. I can't remember off the top of my head because it was a couple of days ago. The guys from What Culture Wrestling had a news video, and they had revealed it, and I was going to post it in the chat, and I forgot to.
See, if you would have said to me, Kenny, Hangman, Ibushi, and like, I don't know, Eddie Kingston or something, or fourth with.
I got the rumored match. Omega, Adam Page, and Ibushi against Jay White, Juice Robinson, and Takeshita.
That's what it is. Yep.
See, I like that a little better.
Main event guys in there. I mean, I'm okay with that.
I like that a little bit better, but I also feel like the Guns are missing, and the Guns have been a really good part of Bullet Club Gold, in my opinion. They deserve a spot somewhere on this show.
I agree 100%. Guns up.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed everything Bullet Club Gold and what they were. I was joking around with Johnny. I think it was last week. I said to him, like, so should I just call them like DX Gold? Because and I dig it. I love what they're doing. And I
have an interesting thought. How about we get the Acclaimed versus the Gun Club at All In? Winner takes on the winner. Takes on winner of the Bucks and FTR at All Out for the tag titles. Daddy Ass comes in and screws over the Acclaimed, and we get the Guns versus, say, FTR at All Out for the titles.
Yeah, I'd be cool if Daddy Ass screwed over the Acclaimed and even joined Bullet Club Gold. With again, I'd be fine with, like, hey, that's a DX guy right there. So, like, and it does kind of feel like there's a 5th member that's supposed to be in there but isn't.
Oh yeah, it's Jay White cardboard.
I love that.
It's great. He did the Guns Up thing to himself too.
I don't care what Matt says. Juice Robinson is fucking crushing it.
He's
the star of that show.
Yeah, I've loved everything he's done. All his like, I don't know if you guys have caught it, but like whenever he's interacting with the referee, it's just fucking gold. Like the referee's counting him out the one time, he looks up and he's yelling, "I know, I get it." It's just perfect. And like, I'll be honest, prior to Collision, I think I seen him on Dynamite maybe once. I didn't know who the fuck he was, and it's been awesome.
He's been a hidden gem in New Japan for years, but he doesn't, like, he obviously can't be an over-the-top personality with promos and stuff. I mean, he did a bit, but I don't know. He's just turned it up ever since he got to Collision, and everyone's like, where the fuck has this guy been for the last 5 years?
I missed the one promo. So Bullet Club Gold did a promo where, shit, what was it now? The Guns have like these headsets on before they come out and do commentary, and they're acting like they actually have them on. But by the end of the promo, you find out that like they're not plugged into anything and they were never on. And it's just like, and I'm like fucking dying. And then I missed one, and Jade said there was one where there was one of the female reporters backstage interviewing them, and Juice, for whatever reason, calls her Tony or whatever, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm not Tony." I dig everything they've done. I feel bad for those that don't like them, but I think they've been gold so far. Pun intended.
Agreed. They are amazing. Highlight of whatever show they're on.
I don't know if you, maybe I missed it. Did you answer who you would be having Punk fight? Or who you'd be betting if you could, make a financial wager he ends up going up against?
Probably Malachi Black.
Yeah?
I think that's a safe bet.
I dig that.
For someone different other than the guys Punk has been feuding with right now, I mean, either that or Ricky in a gimmick match where, like, Ricky returns in England and they do the thing, and then. But yeah, I mean, as far as a new guy for Punk to work in a top singles match, yeah, that's my bad.
Agreed. All right, that is going to do it for our show this evening. Thanks for coming out and chatting some Halloween and some wrestling. Jerry, you got the Dark Match Drive, man. What's going on over there? Where can everybody find you at?
You can find me on Instagram, Dark Match Drive. You can find me on Facebook, Dark Match Drive Facebook page. Plenty of wrestling content posted daily on there. We have the Discord for live chats and stuff during wrestling, AEW stuff, pay-per-views. Also, we chat all the time in there. It's awesome. So come check it out. All Dark Match Drive.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you coming out, and I hope All In and All Out is exactly what you want. I'm sure I'll enjoy them. I just wish we were working towards the same common goal, or wish they were working towards the same common goal. And I feel like they aren't doing that.
You know who won't be at All Out?
John Cena?
No, Phillip Rivers, because if he was, he wouldn't have 10 kids.
Randy, thanks for doing this tonight, man. It was a lot of fun. Any closing thoughts?
Not really, but I feel like I said, I think by Saturday we should have a really good idea of what All In's going to bring. I know with Dynamite, supposed to have that. Kenny Omega's going to have that sit down with JR, so that's how we're going to figure out what his match is going to be. Other than that, it's a wait and see at this point. It's crazy to think that we're less than 2 weeks away from All In, and I'm impressed with the amount of tickets they've sold for that show. I just hope they really, really just buckle down and add some amazing matches over the next few days, just so we can have a fully fleshed out card.
Kenny just calls out Punk during the Ross interview, and all the dirt sheets are wrong, and the internet just goes nuts.
That would be amazing.
Not gonna happen, but it would be amazing just to see the
best kept secret. We were friends all along. We just threw that shit out there to screw everybody up.
I don't know about that, but like just
that would be amazing if they did, but we know it's not happening. I'm just saying that would be pretty impressive.
Online meltdown of Kenny Omega calling out Punk in a JR interview for All In would be insane. And sadly, I don't think it's going to happen, clearly. But it'd be fun to watch the chaos online. As Jer said, find them Dark Match Drive, Facebook, YouTube, Discord, Carrier Pigeon, MSN Messenger, AIM, all that stuff, Yahoo Messenger, all of it, you name it. I'm sure he's got it. And you can catch Randy and I on the Legacy of Star Wars. We just put out an episode previewing Ahsoka. We're a little over a week away from that, so check that out. And we'll catch you all later. Take it easy. Good night. Wrong one.